Hi everybody, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts, and this is an answering questions episode, so let's get right to it, even though there's only one question. And this question is from John from South Sioux City, Nebraska, and he says, the name Allosaurus means different lizard, but what's so different about it? Well, when it was actually discovered in the mid to late 1800s, and I think it was either O.C. Marsh. I think it was O.C. Marsh that actually discovered Allosaurus and named it. Now, during that time, they didn't really actually do a whole lot of scientific research to actually thinking like this animal might be something that is actually very different about other species. But even though when he actually named it, it was even though allo means different or other in Latin, and so I would actually suspect that he probably named it as other or different reptile or lizard is probably based on like the skeletal structure of probably like the skull and some of the vertebrae, and also probably the claws. So it probably was actually different in very unique ways. But basically, when paleontologists at that time were actually doing was basically they were trying to discover species like every time, because they were such in a hurry. Because you see, O.C. Marsh didn't want his rival Edward Drinker Cope to actually have any big finds, so he actually was really in a hurry, and also Cope was also too. And you see, Cope has discovered carnivorous dinosaurs before, but O.C. Marsh didn't. So O.C. Marsh actually was very desperate to actually get a predator that he hasn't discovered yet, and so he actually, what he did is that, considering that Cope actually pretty much discovered some of the carnivorous dinosaurs like Ceratosaurus and a few other dinosaurs. But even though when we actually but you see, Marsh did discover a dinosaur called the dinosaur known as Allosaurus. But what's different about Allosaurus is that, considering that the only dinosaur fossils, particularly in that time, that were actually that were mainly well known, were Megalosaurus and Iguanodon. And Iguanodon was actually the most well-known dinosaur at that point, and Megalosaurus was actually the first ever named dinosaur. So it was actually interesting to actually think about that. But during that time, the American West was actually a gold mine for fossils at that point, and it was actually it was more of like a business decision for most of these paleontologists to actually find these dinosaurs. And when Allosaurus was discovered, the only things different that would probably be the teeth, the skull, and probably the vertebrae, and also the arm bones and the leg bones. So I would probably say most of the animal probably looked very different from other reptiles. So it would actually, because considering that reptiles were pretty much well known in the fossil record, they actually kind of thought that probably these dinosaurs were basically lizards, just basic lizards, like predatory iguanas, planting iguanas, that kind of thing. But there's actually no reason to actually believe that these are actually lizards. But now when we actually look at Allosaurus we see it as a swift bird-like kind of animal. But even though I think we probably would see probably either some feathers on Allosaurus, but during that time during the time when Allosaurus was discovered, they actually had Allosaurus standing vertically. standing straight upright, and we now know that's wrong. It's because, you see, during that time, scientists, these paleontologists, actually thought that that these giant carnivorous dinosaurs and also the smaller dinosaurs probably stood up like humans, and the vertebrae are actually going to try to go straight up. But that's not the case, because since it was actually during like the late 70s or the 80s is when we actually start to see changes in the theories of the anatomy of dinosaurs, and is that the backbones are going to be horizontal. That was actually a case well-being, and also that in the 80s is when the theories of dinosaurs actually changed dramatically, and we actually saw that dinosaurs were actually very bird-like, because they had the hollow bones, and also they actually did have features that were so different from reptiles. And that is actually a really good case to actually point that dinosaurs are actually in a league of their own. They're actually trying to branch out of the reptile family tree and actually become something else. So it was actually at that point that dinosaurs are actually going to be categorized into a different class of reptiles. So they're actually a branch of reptiles, but they're trying to branch out of it. So it's pretty much because it's the process of becoming birds. And when we actually look in Allosaurus' case for being different from the other reptiles that were actually discovered, was basically probably the hands, the arms and the hands, and probably the teeth, and like I said, the teeth and the skull. The skull is very narrow, of course. It's a narrow skull, basically V shaped like this, and so it was very different because it actually had a skull that was not like other reptiles, because the only reptiles that were actually being categorized were iguanas, monitor lizards, and some smaller lizards that were actually found during that time. But when we actually look at Allosaurus, it's actually a very predatory, highly active predator, and we see that the teeth of Allosaurus are very different from other reptiles, is that they actually do shed their teeth, and also they actually their teeth are very blade-like. Most reptiles, their teeth are very blade-like, but the teeth do show that they actually hunt down bigger animals than itself. So it actually be an animal that would actually be really close to actually being hunting down sauropods, and probably stegosaurs, and probably Camptosaurus too, because Camptosaurus was one of the most common dinosaurs during the time of Allosaurus. And also the arms and hands are so different from the front limbs of reptiles. It's because, you see, they're actually right towards their body, and pretty much they don't use them to actually place them on the ground, because that's well common in most reptiles. But when dinosaurs were actually thought as lizards, they thought that dinosaurs only actually had to have like the limbs of a reptile or a lizard. But since that dinosaurs actually had an erect stance, standing upright, and they actually standing straight up, and then they actually don't have to put their arms out like this like most reptiles. And also that since the Allosaurus is a highly active predator, it is actually pretty common to actually say that it is warm-blooded. But when we actually looked at the past, what paleontologists thought in the late 1800s and also in the early 1900s, is we actually see that that paleontologists thought of them as cold-blooded reptiles. Like, they only needed energy from the sun in order to be active. But today we actually found, but even though probably 10-15 years ago, we would actually we actually really found out that most dinosaurs are actually warm-blooded, and they actually had a high metabolism, and also they actually had very active lifestyles. And so Allosaurus, in my opinion, is different in a way from other reptiles based on that it's a highly active, and also probably is that the teeth in the skull and also the arms and hands are so different from other reptiles. I think that's the reason why it was actually so different at that time when O.C. Marsh discovered it and named it. So it was actually a dinosaur that it was, but during that time it was actually the biggest carnivorous dinosaur that was ever discovered. So it was actually a really interesting dinosaur to look at. So I can't really say what O.C. Marsh actually thought of it as being different, but I mean, if there's more, but I'm pretty sure there's something out there that can actually definitively say that O.C. Marsh, how O.C. Marsh named Allosaurus. So I probably wouldn't have too much of the information about it. So all I know it probably would be is just that probably O.C. Marsh thought of it as probably as like a regular reptile, probably when he first found like a backbone or tail vertebrae, and then all of a sudden he discovered like the skull and also the arms and hands, and perhaps a few leg bones too. So that's just my opinion. I don't really have a total answer for that, so it could actually be anything. Alright, that's it for now. Now next week will actually be a special episode, so I do have links to websites of lists of dinosaur names and also prehistoric mammal names. I would like to do some prehistoric marine animals too. So if there's like a prehistoric marine animal that you want me to talk about, like a shark, a specific fish, or otherwise any of the marine reptiles that roam the Mesozoic, or otherwise maybe a strange looking whale, or otherwise maybe the armored fish of the Devonian. And so, I mean, you can actually send me an email, or otherwise post whatever kind of animal that you want me to talk about for the special episode. And so hopefully you guys actually can, hopefully I can get some responses and otherwise and see what I can go with. Anyway, but still, you can still send me questions about dinosaurs or the prehistoric life by actually emailing me at dinocris71@gmail.com, or otherwise you can actually post your question in the comments section of in the Facebook fan page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Put it on the comment section of any posts that I actually have, and then that way I can actually see the questions a lot easier, and I can make it easier for you. And also you can follow me on Twitter at CSGrawl, and so you can follow me on there, and I post some cool stuff on Twitter. So hopefully I get some more questions, and also hopefully I can get a prehistoric animal to talk about for next week's episode. Anyway, make sure to take care of the people around you, and also for younger people out there, make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. Those are the best motivation you can have for a good education. It's very important to have a good education, and if you have a good education, you can get a really good job in the future. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys next week.